You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Holy cow! Welcome in to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. This is our first live of the season, and I think it's a pretty good time to have our first live. What a crazy game. This was something. If you were tuning in at home, you know that this was a crazy game. If you were in Mountain America Stadium, you could feel the insanity that was rolling out in Mountain America Stadium. If you were on the sidelines because you stormed the field too early, first of all, you are hilarious. And I'm glad it worked out because goodness, would that have been embarrassing if it didn't work out for us. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Got the win. That's all that matters. And it was a crazy game. This was one of the most intense football games that I have seen in a long time. And it lived up to the hype of us saying that this was the most important game in like 10 years or 15 years for ASU. It lived up to the hype. This was a really fun game from start to finish. And I think that this could have been a bigger win for ASU. It didn't go that way. I have some thoughts, which we'll talk a little bit about. But overall, I'd say this was a really good win for ASU. Here's the thing. I don't know if I would say that the scoreboard is like deceptive, but at the same time, ASU was in control of the game for the most part. I wouldn't say it was like against K-State. Like when you look back at K-State, you were wetting your pants for the last 5 to 10 minutes of game time. But after the game, you're like, yeah, we were in control. I wouldn't go as far as to say that for this game. It was similar. Like when you look back at this game, you're like, yeah, ASU had a pretty good grasp on it, but they did not shut the door on BYU. And that was the biggest problem with this game. But we're live. And the fun part about being live on Locked On Sun Devils is not only is this not scripted, but the comments are on. So drop a comment. Let's have a conversation. I don't know how long we're going to be here. Could be 30 minutes, could be an hour. But we're going to be here. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk ASU football. Drop a comment. Emily, thank you so much for tuning in. Timberwolf95, thank you for tuning in. All of you guys, it's on YouTube. I posted the link on Twitter. So if you guys want to share that, obviously I'd be very appreciative. Let's have a conversation. What did you guys think of this game? I'll kind of start off with my overall feeling of this game. There were some really interesting explanations by Kenny Dillingham in the post-game conference about some of the decisions that were made late in the game. The biggest one and the one that really caught my attention was when asked about the final drive for ASU after the Javen Robinson pick six, which, oh my God, I'm on the sidelines. I have to be as professional as I can. I'm pretty sure I was doing a surrender cobra, but like in the happiest way possible. Like I could barely contain myself. I'm full on dressed out in my Locked On uniform. It would be not the best if I were to become super biased on the sidelines, but I could barely contain myself. That was absolutely an homage to Demarius Randall. You cannot tell me it was not. But back to the point at hand. On that final drive, Kenny was asked, hey, why didn't you try to score? And the reasoning he gave was peculiar. Essentially, what Kenny said was along the lines of, look, the last thing we want to do is give the ball back to BYU and give them that opportunity to score and then get the onside kick and then score again and win the game. And it's like, Kenny, I hear you. I understand your logic. Here's the thing. You're just over a minute left in the game, I want to say. There was not a lot of time left. BYU was also down to their last 2 timeouts. So pretty easy decision to just run it with Cam Scadaboo 3 times, maybe 4 times, drain the rest of the clock out. And from there, I mean, either you get a field goal or you score a touchdown or you turn it over on downs and they're inside their own side of the field and like way inside compared to where they got to start. It felt like the easiest way to describe it was you played not to lose instead of playing to win, which is weird because that's not Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham is a very, very aggressive coach. We've seen it since he got here. Since he took over play calling duties against USC last year, his first season in 2023, week 4. When he took over play calling duties, it was a completely different ASU team. They were not afraid of anyone. They were not afraid to do anything. They said, you know what? It's 4th and a mile. We're going to go for it. We're going to fake a punt. We're going to not take our points here as a field goal, and we're going to try for 6. Like, this has not been an ASU team that we have seen that plays passively. But I feel like the last 2 weeks against Kansas State and against BYU, in the second half, ASU is playing not to lose right now. And I got news for you. That's how you lose football games. And today was a very close call. I wouldn't say that this game got entirely out of hand, but it got a lot closer than it needed to be. And that's the most important thing to take away from this. Larry, thanks so much for tuning in, my friend. Just run the ball next time. Come on, man. Appreciate you very, very much. Trying to be wise says, man, Kenny was making me sweat the last couple of minutes. I agree. Play to win is how you win. I think the last 2 games, big leads going into halftime, made them play not to lose. And I think that's spot on. Is ASU is protecting a lead instead of trying to increase the lead. They're making sure that they do everything they can to not lose the game. But one of the easiest ways to not lose the game is to put your foot on their throat and keep it there. ASU, they have played up to their competition all year long. There's not been a game this year that ASU has stooped down to the level of competition that their opponent was. They didn't play down to any bad teams this year. You can go back to week 2 and be like, oh, they played Mississippi State close. We didn't know what Mississippi State was going to be back then. So that's not good for me. They crushed Wyoming, who ended up being terrible. So you played above your competition. They beat Texas State. They are a quality football team. Look at the rest of the games. Not Texas Tech. We already talked about them. K-State came into the year as one of the 3, maybe 4 best teams in the conference. You beat them in Manhattan. BYU came into this game with a single loss and in control of going to the Big 12 championship game. You beat them. You were holding your own. Utah came into the year with high expectations. They were not good when you played them, but you didn't stoop down to their level. You beat them. Same with Kansas. Kansas came into the year with very high expectations. They did not play up to them this year. When they came to Arizona State, you beat them. ASU has had no problem playing at or above the level of competition they've seen this year. But the problem that I see with these last 2 weeks is instead of full throttle 60 minutes, you're going into cruise control. Like, you are building 3 possession leads in consecutive weeks. You had 3 possession leads, and it just feels like you're content. Against K-State, it was 21-0 at halftime. That game ended 24-14. This game, you're up 21-3 at halftime. It ends 28-23. It doesn't need to be this close. That's the thing that just kills me. It didn't need to get to this point. But at the end of the day, you still won. Low Tone Capone, let's go, Richie. Let's go, you, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Undefeated at home, David Buck. You are absolutely right. We are undefeated at home. 6-0 for the first time since I think they said 2004 or something like that. That's actually really funny. We asked Kenny about that in postgame, and Kenny was sitting next to Cam Scadaboo at the time. Absolutely hilarious. And we'll talk about that a little bit. He was talking about how cool it was, and he looks over at Cam and he goes, when were you born? And Cam goes, '02. And Kenny laughs and he was like, okay, so Cam was alive when we last went unbeaten at home. He was just 2 years old. So that's crazy that you've gone 20 years without being perfect at home. And ASU was perfect at home this year. And they were all pretty convincing victories. They were convincing or they were hard fought. It's cool. As someone who has been credentialed for the last 3 years to go down to the games, humble brag, it is so much more fun to go down onto the field for the last 10 minutes of game time and just experience the crowd all around you so bought in and having such a great time. So much better. And this year, it's a sold out crowd. By the way, this was a true sellout. This was not like, hey, we're saying it's sold out, but it's probably 80% capacity. Like, that was Kansas. Kansas was a sellout. It was not a complete sellout. The top of the stands were open. There was spots throughout the lower bowl. It wasn't a true sellout. This was a true sellout. There was no room in sight. And there was a lot of blue and there was a lot of gold. Great game. But again, the atmosphere is just so much better when you're winning football games. Everyone is so bought in. People are staying for the games. Earlier in the year, we were bargaining with the students. Here's a Chick-fil-A gift card. Please stay for the whole game. That's where we were at the start of the year. This time around, you couldn't get the guys out of the stadium. You couldn't get them off the field. You couldn't get them off the field when you found out that there was 1 second on the clock. That is such a drastic difference from where you were at the start of the year and compared to where you were the last 2 years. Mountain America Stadium has very quietly become one of the most fun places to go and watch football games. And all it took was to wake up that sleeping giant, and look where we're at now. It's phenomenal. So going undefeated at home, super duper cool. All right, let's check some more comments. Lone Tone Capone back at it again. Are we all polling for Iowa State next week? I don't know. I don't care, honestly. Who is Iowa State playing anyways? Let's take a look. I was smart enough to have ESPN next to me, so this will be nice and easy if I can find them, which of course I can't. So much for it being nice and easy. Iowa. So here's what I do know is I saw that if Iowa State, ASU, BYU, and Colorado, the last 4 teams that are contending for the Big 12 title, if all of them end the season with a 7-2 conference record, the championship game will be ASU versus Iowa State. So as far as I can tell, unless there is something really deep down on those tiebreakers, ASU wins against U of A and you're in. Win and you're in. That's part of the title of this live is you are completely in control. And if you're not, then that's a BI, the rest. Okay, next week they're playing Kansas State. So I don't really know if that affects me one way or the other. If K-State were to win, that would help your strength of schedule because K-State would have a better record. And you would also have the tiebreaker over Iowa State because you beat K-State. I really don't think it matters at this point. For what it's worth, yeah, let's cheer for K-State next week. Why not? Let's make sure that we don't screw this thing up. All right, more comments. Timberwolf 95, stressing that whole third and fourth quarter defense need to play a complete game. BYU was moving and game could have went south in the last few minutes. Overall, great win. I got some thoughts on the defense. If you listen to this podcast, you know I am one of the biggest fans of Brian Ward in the entire world. I don't know what this was. Why are we playing zone? And not a little zone, a lot of zone. And you know what? I saw this 2 weeks ago too against UCF, against a young quarterback. It's going to kill me. I can't remember his name. Dylan Risk. Against Dylan Risk, what did they do? They played zone. What did Dylan Risk do? They hit the sidelines, real quick completions, chunk plays. What did BYU do? They found the soft spots in the zone, which were on the sidelines and across the middle. They hit those. They're moving the ball consistently. you need to adjust. You cannot continue to run this zone because clearly teams are catching up to where you're at. And with them figuring that out, a good defense, by the way, not a bad defense, a good defense is getting picked on right now. And they're getting picked apart, and that cannot continue to be the case. Because I got news for you. U of A, they should be able to move the ball just fine with Tedero, McMillan, and Noah Fafita. Although I do expect more than 2 interceptions. We're getting way ahead of ourselves on those bold predictions, but right now, as of 9:27 p.m. on November 23rd, 2024, I'll say we get 3 picks off Noah Fafita. Let's see if I stick with it, but why not? 3 picks next week. McMillan's still really, really good. And no matter who you go up against in the championship game, if it's a rematch with BYU, if it's going up against Colorado, which is Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, or if it's against Iowa State, who has had a very good passing game going on with their top 2 receivers, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. A couple of Jadens for you. 935 yards and 860 yards, respectively. 12 touchdowns between the 2 of them. If you continue to run this same zone defense, you're going to get picked apart for the last 2 games of the year. And then if you make the playoff, God knows what these other quarterbacks are going to do. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. This is, we got to figure something out. And I'm not saying completely abandon the zone, but we need to tinker with it and figure out, hey, this is working, this isn't working. The pass rush, it's solid. They did a really good job collapsing the pocket today. The problem is Retzlaff is a criminally underrated, like not a dual threat, like a mobile quarterback. He's able to manipulate the pocket, make those off-script throws. And he was doing that all day today. So that's tough when you can't finish sacks. And it leads to busted coverage. And there was a lot of busted coverage in this game. That's something they really got to take a look at. I don't know if it was miscommunication from the safeties or if the corners were expecting too much. But there was some big-time blown coverage. There was 2 big plays I can think of that it was bad. That's got to get cleaned up. Otherwise, it was a good game. It just, God, the defense should have been better, in my opinion. Diane Bradshaw, Grandma, how are you? That was the messiest last 2 minutes I've ever seen. It was heart attack football at its best. Grandma, you nailed it. That was standing on the sideline. I don't think I talked about this yet. When ASU first stormed the field, it was cool. It was a lot more packed than it was for Utah. So there was a lot more people, and I got run over, and people were scuffing up my dress shoes, which thankfully are a few years old, so they don't look good. So I didn't mind. I did get flat tired once, and I had to stand over by a cop. I was like, no one's going to attack you, and I need to fix my shoe. So you stand right there. But when they announced there was 1 second and they had to force the fans off, which took forever, there was a part of me sitting there that went, oh, crap, we're going to lose. Like, this is just the college football gods are laughing at us, and they're going to hit a Hail Mary. They did hit the Hail Mary, but was well short of the end zone, and thankfully ASU was on top of it. So, yeah, that was a stressor for sure. Emily Kruger, I was 6 back in 2004, and that was the first year I went to my first ASU football game in my life. Very nice. Emily, what was that game? Let me know. I'm really curious. Collins MCYT. I'm just going to call you Collins if that's okay. Hail State, dude. This has been something that's been so cool this year is like Mississippi State fans are still here. Texas Tech fans are still here. Yeah, Hail State, rough season down there in Starkville. I'm still looking forward to making that trip next year. And I'm hoping that Mississippi State is really going to load up in the offseason and they're going to find a way to make some noise because that SEC is eating each other alive right now. And Mississippi State should be all in on trying to make even more chaos out there. So, yeah, Hail State, hopefully you guys can beat Ole Miss next week because they're the biggest pretenders in the world, and they made me look stupid in the offseason. Low Tone Capone, yeah, U of A is infamous for that. They sure are, and you know that they're going to be on their A game to try and ruin ASU season because they're not going bowling. They got crushed today by TCU. They have 7 losses. U of A is going to go into that game next week. They're going to go, we don't got nothing to lose. Let's ruin ASU season. That's what they're going to go in thinking. Brody Skinner, thank you. Welcome in. Yes, I want Iowa State in the Big 12. They may have secured that tonight. I don't know for sure. Because if Iowa State loses next week and BYU wins, I haven't looked at the tiebreakers. All I know is BYU's not done. Colorado really hurt themselves today. And Iowa State is like that crocodile that's just kind of sitting in the swamp waiting to make his move. Wanakin, like Anakin with a W, Wanakin P, you got to let him know. I am here to let him know. Craig, I don't want to butcher your last name. I apologize. Craig, it's a process. It sure is. Eric Hancock, I'd rather play Iowa State in the championship than BYU again. I could go back and forth. So I was talking with my dad about this tonight after the game, and he asked me who I would rather see. And my logic was just kind of like, I feel confident about whoever we play because I think we're just the better football team right now. Iowa State, you haven't seen them yet. So that's certainly like a question mark factor of like, what do we expect? We'll have game film. We'll have 12 games of game film, but you haven't played this team yet. That's a really good team. That is a great secondary. So that would have to be a Cam Scadaboo special in that game. I wouldn't mind playing Colorado. I understand how good Shadur is. I understand Travis Hunter is one of the top runners for the Heisman, and he's one of the best players, if not the best player in the country. I still think that ASU, pound for pound, is the better football team, and you should be able to exploit their weaknesses. BYU, that one would scare me a little bit because of the revenge factor, but I think you showed them today that we're the better team, and if you had a rematch, Kenny's probably going to have those guys dialed in of like, hey, let's not do that again, and let's do what we're supposed to do. What we should have done to end the game. Auburn and A&M going at it on overtime. Oh, I forgot that game was on when I got home because I had to pick up my puppy because my parents were watching her while I was at the game today. So let's take a look at that. In the meantime, Fred Hernandez, what's going on? Yes, our games don't have to be so, and I'm going to assume that you meant to say insane or stressful, and I would agree with you, Fred. That was one of those games that probably took a few seconds off my life, for sure. I see the kiddies laying down with their Brennan out the door soon. I don't know what you do with Brennan. I don't know if, like, you hold on to him for one more year and kind of see what happens. I don't know if you blow it up. It's such a weird situation in Tucson, and I couldn't be any happier than I am. I love seeing everything that's been going on. Let's see. Auburn is up 41-38. Texas A&M has the ball. They're in the first overtime or the second overtime. I don't know. ESPN doesn't tell me. Looks like it's going to be a good game. So glad that Game Time is going to College Station for the second time this year because, you know, we all needed that, but that's a whole other thing. Let's see. Fred Hernandez is using a prevent defense, the zone with just a 4. Yeah, no. Ward, I love Brian Ward. This defense needs some fine-tuning because this zone defense, I will tell you, I didn't even watch this game. I've heard from my family. I've heard from other people I've talked to. It's bringing back flashbacks of the Ohio State Rose Bowl. And I would not like to experience that. I was 1 at the time. I'm a 95 kid, so I was 1 year old when that game happened. I did not watch it. I would not like to watch it because I have not appreciated the way that this zone defense has kind of been mauled over the last few weeks. So let's change that. I don't want to have to deal with that. Sipping coffee, trying to calm my nerves. Low tone Capone, you do what you gotta do, man. I have myself a Mountain Dew right here. I have been talking, so I haven't had a chance to get a sip of it. Thankfully, it's still cold. Fred Hernandez. Ward is going to a prevent defense. It's the coaching. Both Ward and Kenny need to rethink what they're doing. Games don't have to be that close. Easy fix. Send 5 on 3rd and long. Love it. I don't even care what you do. I don't care if you drop 8 or you send 8. You need to have some kind of variety in the defense you're calling. And maybe there is. And I don't have the game tape to see that for myself. But I can tell you from watching these games, it feels like the same defense over and over and over again. And if it is different defenses, then you need to figure out why the same weaknesses are being exploited, no matter what the package is. It was consistently over the middle. It was consistently on the sidelines. There's really good play from this defense, but there's also a lot of like, how come they keep attacking the same spot and nothing is changing? That's my problem. Emily, your first game was against UCLA. It was during October. I don't remember where UCLA was back in the early 2000s, if they were good or they were bad. But there you go. Very nice. Fred, you were there? That's awesome. That's a good feeling. Or maybe you were responding to Emily and saying that you were at the UCLA game. Either way, love that you're in attendance, Fred. Love that all of you guys were able to tune in. I was not sure how this was going to do, and we had 45 people tuning in at one point. We're still going strong with 30 right now. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's always fun to shoot the stuff and have conversations about ASU. It's even more fun when I get to do it live. And this year has not been easy because the games have ended very, very late. And I doubt anyone is still up at 1 a.m. when I get home. Or I've been stuck in the office on the road games and just haven't been able to get home early. Most of the time when I get home, it's later than this. So when I got home and it was only 9, I was like, I think I can try and go live, and ended up being a pretty good decision. So I appreciate you guys. Infamous front runner. The Sporting News has all the tiebreaker scenarios updated 40 minutes ago. Like I said, I took a look, and from what I can tell, it seems like ASU is in complete control. I don't think that if ASU wins next week that they're getting knocked out at this point. But I could be wrong. The one thing that Iowa State has going for them is the strength of schedule is ridiculous. That's going to give them the edge over Colorado and BYU as long as they beat K-State next week. So Iowa State wins, they're in. ASU wins, they're in. That feels like your Big 12 championship right now, pending whatever happens if one of those two teams loses, or if BYU does something crazy, or if if Colorado does something crazy. There's all sorts of stuff that could potentially happen. Brandy, hey, hi, welcome in. Thank you so much. Brody Skinner, last comment before I head out. I appreciate you tuning in, Brody. I found you and the rest of the Lockdown cast. Love your demeanor and how you interact with the rest of the crew. Great rep for ASU. Thank you. Dude, I'll tell you what, Locked On has been one of the best blessings of my entire journalism career. This is my 4th season. I've been here over 3 years now. I've yet to work a single day when I put this podcast together. So it's a blast. And we're only going to get bigger. We're only going to have more fun. And now that ASU is winning football games, we are going to have that much more fun. Sitting here, shooting stuff, having good conversations. Who knows how this season's going to end, man. And we're going to have a podcast about this next week. We're going to have a lot to talk about because I have a lot of thoughts. But the one that comes to my mind right now, call it an over-exaggeration if you want. I thought about it this morning, not just during this game. With you keeping everything intact, and Kenny Dillingham is staying. He's not leaving. I'll shave my head. I'll shave my beard, whatever. My eyebrows, everything. I don't care. He's not leaving. He's not leaving. So when, not if, he signs that extension and you keep Kenny and you keep your offensive and your defensive coordinator and Sam Levitt is back and potentially Jordan Tyson and some of the other guys are back, you and I have a feeling you're going to kill the transfer portal. Your recruiting class is solid. Here's what I'll say. You might be a sleeper for a national title next year. Boom. Said it. Call me crazy. I don't know. Nobody thought that ASU was going to be this far ahead in the second year of a rebuild. And with the insane momentum you're building right now, what's going to stop you? What's going to stop you? You're holding on to everything. Like, it's one thing if, like, you lose one of your coordinators and some of the guys on the defense or the offense are like, you know what, I'm going to follow that coordinator, and you lose players. You are potentially returning 35 of 44 players from your 2 deep on offense and defense. If you return 30 of them, you feel good. If you somehow return all of them with the coaching staff and bring back Sam Levitt and bring back Jordan Tyson and bring back some of your other really key players this year that could declare, why not? Why can't you contend for a natty? You certainly will be contending once again for the Big 12. We'll wait and see. Kenny Dillingham locked up Coach of the Year. I hope so, and I think he should. And the reason why is because he came into a program that it wasn't just a rebuild. It wasn't like Colorado, where Dion came in and it was a broken program. This is a program in hell. Call it what it is. They were in the middle of NCAA violations. Kenny Dillingham said as much himself that when you get hired to a situation like that, you're hired to be fired. And instead, Kenny Dillingham has already turned them into a legitimate contender in his second year. When you have that kind of insane turnaround in such a short amount of time, it would be irresponsible to not give him Coach of the Year. He should get it for the Big 12. If you were comparing him to the rest of the country, I know people throw Dan Lanning's name out there. I appreciate it, but we all had those expectations for him. I don't think he should get it. I feel like it'd be between Kenny Dillingham and Kirk Cignetti from Indiana. And I know the Hoosiers got crushed today. I don't care. They're still a good football team. That's another thing. I'll die on this hill. You can talk about their strength of schedule till you're blue in the face. They didn't make the schedule, and they beat the crap out of everyone in front of them. So you can tell me till you want to your heart's extent, they're frauds, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they're frauds. I think that they just ran into a team that is contending for a national championship. But neither here nor there. ASU, Brody, I appreciate you tuning in. I will catch you next time. We are probably going to be wrapping up this bad boy. This has been a really good time, though. I'll tell you what. We need to do this more often. And as long as these games don't end and I get home at 1 o'clock in the morning, we will be doing them way more often. I'll also tell you guys, there will be an episode tomorrow. I don't want to wait till till Monday. There will be an episode tomorrow. It's not going to be the typical, the good, the bad, takeaways, and game balls. It's going to be something a little more different. I don't have an exact structure yet. I know I've done similar reactions to like beating Utah, and I think I did for K-State last week. I don't remember. It'll be something similar to that, to where it's just kind of a sit down. It's like, hey, this was a great game. This is what it means for the program, blah, 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 blah. So there will be an episode tomorrow. It'll be full length, so full 30 minutes. Or 35, I don't know. I always run over, even though I don't mean to. Normally supposed to be a tight 30. I probably average about 35 at this point. Won't apologize. We're having a good conversation. So we'll have one tomorrow. We'll be back Monday for the typical good, bad takeaways, game balls. And then it's hate week, ladies and gentlemen. And that's where I'll leave you off. It is hate week. And this is a big, big hate week. ASU has lost the last 2. U of A has not won 3 straight territorial cups since the turn of the century. ASU has Big 12 title hopes on the line and potentially a college football playoff berth on the line. There is a lot here for ASU that should motivate them to win this game. But again, Arizona's got nothing to play for. So they're going to come into this game and they're just going to be like, you know what? Yeah, let's just ruin everything the Sun Devils want. Because you lose that game, you obviously don't go to the Big 12 championship game. And who knows what happens after that. I don't know what bowl game you're going to. Still be a decent one. Like, I'd be happy with the Alamo Bowl. Let's go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, baby. That'd be fun. But obviously, you would prefer to go to the playoff. You would prefer to win the championship. So this is a big week. This is a huge hate week. This is the time to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Sun Devils. Turn on notifications. We're everywhere, podcast form. So if you are on Spotify or Apple Music or anything else, we're there, free and available. We're here on YouTube. You can hit me up anywhere. I respond to all my comments on YouTube. I respond to people who will hit me up on Twitter, which you can do my handle, Richie Bradshaw 36. You can do the podcast handle at LO_Sun Devils. Don't DM me on Instagram or Facebook. That's weird. Don't do that. Not a fan. hit me up somewhere where we can have a conversation. And we will have a conversation. I love talking ball with you guys. But I think that's where we go ahead and wrap up a 35-minute live, which there you go. Very typical of Richie Bradshaw. Let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Great audience tonight. Well over 30 people for most of the night. That's huge. Normally, it used to be like 10 to 12 people, and that was a good live stream. So this was awesome. I appreciate you guys. Each and every single one of you. I especially appreciate my everydayers. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Have a safe night. Drink your ZBiotic if you are going to party tonight, and I encourage you to have a good and safe time. Drink responsibly, take your ZBiotic, and make sure that you wake up tomorrow with no headache. I'll see you guys later. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.